And so again, Dr. Jacqueline Holland here at Morgan State University, part of the chaplain team, and we'd like to welcome you to Insightful Foundations. We gather every week on Thursdays from 11 to 12, and we talk about issues and concerns that really impact us as a community, and also that involve our faith, in our faith walk, whatever that might be or look like for you. Our dean of the chapel, Reverend Bernard Kills, is not here today, so we're going to go ahead with the program. And today we're going to have a very interesting topic. I don't know if many of you knew that April is designated as Financial Literacy Month. And oftentimes finances play a huge role, in our life, in our relationships, in our decisions. And so it gives me great pleasure today to introduce to you an individual who has really made an impact nationwide, in regards to financial literacy. I'd like to introduce you to Mr. Theodore Daniels. Mr. Daniels is a global financial educator, author. He's also an adjunct professor. He's the founder and president of the Society for Financial Education and Professional Development, Incorporated. And this organization is a nonprofit that teaches financial literacy to people of all ages and backgrounds, with an emphasis on the underrepresented groups, and especially for HBCU students. For the past 21 years, SFEPD has taught financial education to over 425,000, including 325,000 students at 90 colleges and universities, and they've also won awards for their efforts. They were recognized in the United States Financial Literacy and Education Commission's 2019 report as having the best practices for providing financial education at institutions of higher education. The FDIC awarded Mr. Daniels and his organization the Chairman's Award for Excellence and Innovation in Financial Education. He has also served with President George W. Bush on the Council on Financial Literacy from 2008 to 2010. Mr. Daniels has created through his organization a student ambassador program in which students teach other students the principles of financial planning and financial literacy. I actually met Mr. Daniels several years ago, when I worked in Prince George's County Public Schools. We have a financial literacy program there for high school students. And he was very supportive of our efforts and helped us as we made that program a reality there for students. Mm-hmm. And so today, he's going to be talking about financial resilience in the Black community. So I'd like you to sit back and enjoy his presentation. And at the end, we will have a time for questions and more discussions. Yes. Mr. Daniels?
Yes, thanks very much, Dr. Holland. Thanks for inviting me, and I always get excited about having an opportunity to talk to others about financial literacy and financial resiliency. And so we're going to have a good time today, and this is very interesting too, because we get a chance to talk from a biblical standpoint as well throughout the presentation. I always say to people that most everything you need to know about managing your financial resources is found in the Bible. As a matter of fact, there are more references associated with money in the Bible than it is associated with salvation, on the 12 cases, for instance, where that exists. I also have Tracy Horn with me too, whom I've worked with for a number of years at Wells Fargo. Wells Fargo supports us at all the HBCUs around the country. So we're happy to have her to join us today. So we're going to talk about financial resiliency in the Black community, okay? So first of all, we talk about Proverbs 9, wisdom. Give instruction to the wise, and they will become wiser still. Teach the righteous, they will gain in learning. That's what we try to do, is share our wisdom with individuals so they can maximize the financial resources that they have and make good decisions. So that's what it's all about. Okay. Now, in life, and this is what I always think about this, and I thought about this in my life. I always want my life to be on an uptick. And throughout my lifetime, and I think any individual will want to have his or her life on the uptick. When you start off when you're young, you start saving, you're investing, you manage your credit well, because at some point you're going to want to sit down. The bones are going to get tired. So you want to have that financial base. So I always tell people, keep in mind that you're developing your own graph here in terms of growing a financial base and wealth. Now, these are the issues that affect primarily the African American community. We're going to talk about that because we're going to talk about what's affecting us in order to determine just what we need to do in terms of strengthening our financial resiliency. Now, we find that we're impatient. We look for the current. We're present based. We got to do it now. We got to buy the bag now. We got to buy the shoes now. We can't wait. We're not long-term thinkers in terms of our financial well-being. So we want to look at that differently. Thus, we have limited savings. That's an indication that most of us cannot take care of a $400 unexpected expenditure because of the rate of spending that we have. So we have limited investments, and we have numbers to show that. We have casual spending and low credit scores, which causes us to pay more for our loans. That turns out to be a drainage on the financial resources in the household and the community at large, because we're paying more for our loans because of mismanagement of credit. Now, thus high debt loads. That's one thing here that also can affect the resiliency of a community, and low retirement savings as well, and poor loans and car loans as well as mortgage loans. Thus, we have limited wealth because of those things. We want to change that to strengthen our resiliency. Okay. Now, how we do that? We do that primarily through financial literacy. You just notice you see these same things happening when individuals or families are financially illiterate. But when they're financially literate, you'll see delayed gratification taking place. They take a long-term view of life, in terms of where they want to be at age 30, 35, 45, 50, 65, preparing for those later years. So they increase savings, they make investments, they limit their consumer debt, they have diversified investments, they invest in mutual funds, stocks and bonds, real estate, all those things, preparing to make sure they're resilient throughout their lifetime. And they have good mortgages because they manage credit well. They have good auto loans because they manage credit well. And they accumulate money for retirement. Because as we know, as things going now, we can't depend on politicians to provide funds for us during retirement. And the average Social Security benefit is only $1,500. So most of us could not live off of that. So thus, if you do these things on the left-hand side, you're going to have higher wealth accumulation. So you're going to move from the right over to the left, to enhance your financial resiliency. Okay. Now, so what we are at we're at a fork in the road. This is what is happening based on the data. Latest data from Nielsen is showing that we are spending like $1.1 trillion on consumer expenditures or personal use assets. But you look to the left, our median net worth is only $24,000. So we have to decide whether we're going to continue to go to the right and increase that number. And by the way, that number is as high as the economy of a number of countries around the world. Are we going to move over here to the left, managing our financial resources well, so we're resilient, and increasing our median wealth? So we got to make that decision. That's where we need to go, okay? Now, if you look at the data here, it's a snapshot, the black and white wealth gap. If there's one that bothers me a lot here, is right here, that third one there. But we know, we only 40% of us own a home, so that also affects our wealth accumulation. But you notice here, in terms of days we have that could survive an emergency, we can only survive 5 days, compared to 31 days for a white family. So here again, your resiliency gets to be really strained if you only can survive for 5 days. So it calls upon all of us could try to save and invest because things do happen. We're going to have economic cycles all the time where we have an uptick in the economy and a downward tick in the economy. And then unexpectedly, as we're experiencing now, we got a pandemic where high employment exists. A lot of things are happening we didn't anticipate, but you have to have a financial base because things will happen, okay? And it goes on down the line there, and not even talk about the fact that 1 in 200 of us are millionaires versus 1 in 7 for whites. What I'm really concerned about in terms of financial resiliency, is that having that base just in case we have an emergency. And all of us have an expense over our heads right now, and we don't know the cost of it, but we got to be ready for it because it will happen, okay? Now, you notice here, in terms of our assets, you see that only 6.5% of us own stocks and bonds, versus mutual funds versus 25% of whites, And you look at the savings, our average savings balance only $1,260. So as a matter of changing how you use that $1.5 trillion to build financial resiliency in your household, okay? Because the money is there, it's just how it's being used, okay? So, some issues to expect during your lifetime is having managed your cash flow, having a positive cash flow all the time, where you're not always living from payday to payday, where every time you get paid, you got to spend it all, or everything is dependent on a paycheck. When I get paid, we get some new tires for the car. When we get paid, we'll go to the movies. When I get paid, we'll go to the movies. I want to have that situation. I always want to have some left over. And one way to do that is to have a budget in place, a spending plan in terms of how you're going to use the income coming into the household, as well as how you and use it to cover the expenses that you need to maintain that household. Now, using credit responsibly is very important too, because we live in a credit-driven society. Most of the things that we want, particularly the larger things like the house, the car, we can't pay cash for that house or the car. But if we have good credit, we can leverage our income and our good credit to get the house or the car. Here again, working toward financial resiliency. And keeping a record of your transactions is very important too. Know how much you owe and own at all times. And knowing all the tax strategies that you can use to retain as much as you can by participating in your company's 401k, 403b, or 401k, where you can save on taxes and also accumulate money for retirement. Now, we always want to protect. We want to protect what we have. So how do we protect what we have? It's called risk management. Having insurances in place, life insurance, just in case you were to prematurely die. The family can maintain the lifestyle they have become accustomed to if you have life insurance. Property and casualty insurance, that's all about homeowners insurance if you have a house. So if you have a flood, you call the insurance company. They cover the expenses associated with clearing the basement out or restoring the basement. They cover the cost. You have an auto accident, you call the insurance company. You have to use your current income or your current assets to take care of those damages. If you live in an apartment, you have renter's insurance. Here's a case that you have a fire. You just call the insurance company. And of course, some of us have disability insurance because we never know. We can slip and fall at some time and we still need income. And health insurance is very important too, because we have to go to the doctor to maintain our health and sometimes the hospital. Based on the latest data associated with COVID-19, the visit to the hospital for COVID-19 averaged it ranges from $10,000 to $40,000. So that's a lot of money. So you want to have health insurance at all times. And of course, when you get older, you may want to look at long-term care insurance, just in case you need someone to come in to help you out during a period of illness. Okay. And some of these things happen because of the buying decisions that we make, in terms of how we live and our resiliency is based on how those buying decisions that we make. You always want to ask yourself, do I need it? Am I buying it because my friend bought it? Am I buying this item to impress others? At the end of the day, you're not really going to impress people because it's probably the next 2 weeks away from when you wore that nice dress and a nice watch. People are not going to remember it anyhow, Then you want to ask, can I afford it? I always ask that question. Am I good with my personal finances? When you're dealing with your credit card balance, you want to make sure, ask those questions when you're using the financial resources you have. This is what I said before, and be prepared for the economic cycles that exist in this country, and they do. For instance, you have a peak period, then we go down to a trough like we had back in 2008. Things were really bad, unemployment was very high. Then we start a recovery. We're still in the recovery period, but at some point we're going to have a peak. Then we'll go back into a recession. Then we have a trough. Then they have recovery, another recovery. So in managing your financial resources, you want to know we're going to have economic cycles, and you prepare for them so you're resilient. No matter where we are, in this cycle. Like a lot of people who knew who was aware of these cycles, they made provisions for, so they really weren't impacted significantly by 2008. And a lot of people not impacted by the pandemic because they know they had to have a financial base, so they maintained their resiliency when there's a dislocation. Okay, and it's all in the Bible too. It's all in the Bible. It says here in the Bible, under Luke 14, 20, 30, for which one of you, when he wants to build a tower, does not first sit down and calculate the cost and see if he has enough to complete it. And all who observe will begin to observe, all who observe it begin to say, oh, that was ridiculous. Same thing with your money. All of a sudden, you call people up and say, look, I don't have any money, I'm broke, man. Here you go. People just gonna talk about you if you don't manage your money well. So it's right there in the Bible telling you this is what you need to do, in terms of knowing exactly how you're gonna use the financial resources that you have, okay? And the budget's easy. You identify the income that you have, your fixed expenditures, that can be your rent, your mortgage. You always treat savings as a fixed expenditure, And you have variable expenses like your utilities, your transportation, your food, your doctor visits, or your prescriptions. That's variable. And you have discretionary expenses. Those are the expenses primarily. You can do them if you want. You want to take a vacation, you want to go have a party or something like that. You have some flexibility there. But your fixed expenditures and variable expenses, you're always going to have those developed. So you want to make provisions for those at all times. Now, let's look at debt. Move this over here. Now, like in Proverbs, I'm sure most of you made Proverbs here in terms of debt. Like Proverbs 22:7. The rich rule over the poor, and the borrower is a slave to the lender. And that always bothered me. That language always bothered me. So I said, I just gonna live my debt, but I never want to think somebody I'm gonna be slave to anybody, So that's what it is when you get in debt. You are being controlled by someone else when you have debt. So you want to manage your debt. Like I said, and earlier on I said high debt loads. We want to reduce our debt loads so we're not controlled by other people. Okay. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that we live in we have bifurcated financial services in this country. That means that the prime mortgages, money market accounts, the better checking accounts, the savings accounts are marketed primarily to Caucasians. And you see to the left there, the alternative financial services. If you drive around Baltimore, I know here in DC, you see the same thing over in Southeast and Northeast. You're going to see alternative financial services like check cashers, payday lenders, auto title companies. You want to stay away from those companies because the interest rate is very high. You're talking about 3%, 300%, or 40%. It is going to be a tremendous drainage on your financial resources. You want to move over here to the right rather than going to the left. Even though they park themselves right in our neighborhoods, we're going to say, hey, we're not using you because we know what you're up to. It's all about making money off of us, draining our financial resources, reducing our financial resiliency because we're paying a lot to you, okay? And you see on the radio, I know it's 104.1 here in DC, the gospel station. These guys advertise all the time, on those stations, but they don't advertise on WTOP, which is a primarily white station, so you see what's going on. Now let's talk about credit. As I said before, credit is important because it gives us the ability to acquire goods and services today, but pay later. But when you're borrowing money, you got to remember that you got to make a promise to repay because we want to have better loans. you know, if we need to have a loan, we're going to have a good loan. Okay. Now, here again, and we talk about debt. It's better that you should not borrow, that means promise, than you to vow and not pay. So when you borrow money, you're right back in the Bible again. Ephesians 5:5 is what it says. Don't borrow it, the money, if you're not going to pay it back, you're not going to pay it back consistently. It just tells you that right there in the Bible. Okay. Here again, is what I've said before about wisdom again. Keep that in mind, wisdom at all times. Now, the debt tracker, it's important that you maintain some information on how much debt you have, how much debt you have and how much it's costing you. Now, I use this a lot when I'm talking to college students, and a lot of students don't know which of these 4 columns that appear to be the best, the most important, right? The most important. And there are 4 columns here. And the first one is the amount owed, okay? That's what you want to look at. And the interest rate, you want to have the lowest interest rate for the loan that you're about to acquire in the shortest term, because the higher the interest rate and the longer the term is, the total cost of the loan is going to be much greater. You see the dealers now advertising, come on in, buy a new car, you can finance of 84 months. Yes, the payment will be lower, but your total cost is going to be more for the cost. You may end up paying $3,000 to $4,000 more for the car. So at any time when you're borrowing money, you want to put emphasis on these 4 columns here. The amount is owed, the interest rate, the term of the loan. You want the shortest term possible. That if your cash flow can support it, pay it off as soon as possible, and your total cost. Because they have discovered, and surveys have done all the time, and they found that African Americans are more payment sensitive than cost sensitive. So when you walk into a dealer, they will say, look, I can put you in a car today for $250. Don't accept that. As a matter of fact, I said, look, let's shop for your financing before you shop for the car, because people are shopping you around and drive your credit score down, thus a high interest rate. So you want to have the lowest interest rate all the time, okay, in the shortest term to maintain your resiliency, okay, and not just give you money away. Now, and when we talk about credit, let's look at 5 C's. The first one, you must demonstrate you have the capacity to pay the loan that you're trying to acquire. The next one is character. You must have a reputation of paying people on time, and they discern that from what's reflected in your credit report. You're current on your payments, and you have lower debt load. All that's a positive for you. And collateral. Some things you buy, you have to have collateral. You buy the house serves as collateral. You buy the car, that serves as collateral. You buy equipment for your business, that serves as collateral, okay? And this is really, really important, knowing exactly what you're getting into when you're seeking loans. They say, what about these other 4 and 5? It's based on stability. They want to see if you're stable. You running from job to job, and you're moving from place to place. Those are the other 2 items that they want to look at. Now, I always tell people in terms of knowing what you're getting into. People say, I didn't know all that was happening when I bought the car, when I bought the furniture. When I bought this, I bought that. Know the terms, because when you're sitting across the table and these terms start flying around, they say your debt got to be secured. That means you got to have some collateral. It's going to be your house, your car, your CD in the bank, or whatever the case. That's a secured credit. Now, unsecured credit is what I like. That means that you have a reputation of paying people on time. Your credit report shows you pay people on time. So you just put it on the dotted, you just sign on the dotted line, and you got what you want. Now, credit lines, of course, that's associated with your checking account. Wherever you exceed the balance, they automatically pay the checking rather than kick it back. And the alternative credits, what we talked about before, the payday loans, the pawn shops, the rental centers, and all of that. And installment credit is just you pay a fixed amount for a fixed period of time, like a car loan. Revolving credit is like a credit card. You use it, you pay, you use it, you pay. And as long as you make the payment, you can use it forever. I have a credit card I've had since back in the 70s because I make the payments as agreed, And collaborative, same thing as here, okay? Now the pros and cons to credit here again, it's convenient and you can use it to cover emergencies. I like the idea of using credit to build assets, where you leverage your good income and your good credit to buy the house or to start the business, That's why I like to use it for that particular purpose. And plus, you have to give you build future credit. So if anything happens, you have another dislocation, you need to borrow some money, you got a history, you got a good credit. You said, I need to borrow $5,000 or $2,000 or $10,000, whatever the case may be. You got a history, managing well. And the con is that you can spend excessively with the particular credit card. You can spend excessively because so casual spending comes into play. It may limit your ability to save and invest because you're always paying bills. And if you don't pay the debt off soon, it's going to be the item that you're buying is going to be more expensive too. Okay. And it's the constant drainage in your financial resources. And I had this experience myself. When I came out of college, I didn't have any credit cards, but I decided to get some credit cards. I had about 4. And I found myself at the kitchen table every pay period writing checks. So I got to the point, I said, look, that's not going to happen again. I'm going to get rid of these things because I didn't go to school, stay up all night trying to pass exams, trying to balance the balance sheet and all this, all those things, trying to find that 1 cent, that was missing. And so I went down to 1 credit card for my personal use and 1 for my business use, for business use, okay? Now, so the economic benefits of good credit is that lower interest rates on all your borrowings, and credit is always available. And the economic disadvantages of bad credit is higher interest rates because there's a loan for everybody. It's just how much you pay because all loans are risk-based. Your risk is based on what they see in your credit report. Okay? It limits the source of your credit, and plus it limits your employment opportunities now because more and more employers are screening potential employees based on the information in his or her credit report. Okay, based on the information his or her credit report, you can get a job or you can lose a job if you have bad credit. And higher insurance premiums. In 48 states, insurance companies are allowed to pull your credit report to see just how you're making payments. If you're not making payments on your other debts, they assume you're at greater risk. You're the same guy who run down I-95 at 100 miles per hour, run through a stop sign in the neighborhood, exercising bad judgment. So they'll just raise your premium on your car as well. Okay. Now, anytime you're planning your financing, always go to annualcreditreport.com. See if there are any errors in it. Get the errors corrected, before you apply for the loan. And during the pandemic, all the credit reporting agencies, Experian, Equifax, TransUnion, will give you a copy of your credit report every week because there's a lot of scamming going on, so you can check to see what's going on every week. Just go to this website here, www.annualcreditreport, check it out, make sure that what's in your report belongs to you and no one is assuming your identity to acquire new debt. Now, I always say try to improve your credit before you acquire any new loan. I like to have a target of 750, but you can get a loan for less than that, but you get an interest rate at a higher credit score. Okay? And know the terms and conditions of any loan that you get involved in, because here again, you can get into a box here and you paying for something that you shouldn't pay for, and if you don't read the terms and conditions, take the time out and read the terms and conditions because you say, oh, I didn't know that. Now I got this loan for 5 years, longer than I anticipated, or I can't pay it off when I get a bonus because it has a prepayment penalty in it. You want to know those things. All those things roll back to your financial resiliency in terms of what you have made a commitment to do. Okay? So you ask those questions, I'm paying interest only, and definitely if you see any loans that have a prepayment penalty, you don't do the deal. That means that if you pay it off early, you got to pay them additional fees. So you tell them, look, I'm not going to do the deal unless you take this out. Okay. So think about those things. Now, your credit formula, when you are dealing with your life in terms of your finances, and strengthen your financial resiliency, think about this formula, put it in your head. Your mortgage loan payment, your car loan payment, your student loans, plus your credit card debt equals future income spent or already committed. So you want to manage the left side here. You want to manage your student loan debt. You want to manage the level of car loan payment you have, the mortgage. Don't get over your head, and your credit card debt. Manage that, your credit card debt. Because, you're spending what you haven't earned, and you can get into a situation like that. Okay? Now, who's involved in your credit? Your credit reporting agencies, the government, they always checking. Risk scoring agencies always checking too, check your credit score, and lenders. How much debt is too much? This is always a question. This always sort of hit us, particularly when we're buying a car or trying to buy a house. So you look at your debt to income ratio. You shouldn't see your debt to income ratio should not exceed your debt to income ratio should not exceed 20% when you take home pay. Here's an easy calculation. You look at the net take home pay. In this case here, you got $2,500. You have a student loan payment, $200. You got a car loan of $250. You got a credit card payment of $75. Your personal loan, $75 or $600 a month you're paying out. Then you divide that into your net monthly payment. So you get 24%. That's too much debt. The loan is going to be disapproved, or if it's approved, it's going to be at a higher rate. I have a niece in Atlanta. She and her husband were trying to refinance their house. They pushed her back and said, look, we can't approve it, And she called me and said, Uncle Theodore, they say our debt to income is too high. What does that mean? So I told her, I said, Veronica, you look at your net monthly income versus what you are paying out now. That's what they're saying. You got to start liquidating some of your debt, bring it back in. And when you're buying a house, your debt to income ratio can look like 43% or 45% in some cases, buying a house. But in ordinary circumstances, like buying a car or some other type of debt you're trying to acquire, they're going to use this as a tool. Now, we made it easy for a lot of people. We have an app, the SFPD app. And you can go there to our app in the App Store and download it, and you can check your debt to income ratio at all times, as well as the limit on your credit card to make sure you stay within the 30% limit. Okay. So, in terms of credit card, is your debt limit ratio. You don't want to charge any more than 30% of your limit on your credit card, and definitely do not go beyond 50%, because as you go toward the maximum, your credit score will go down. Okay. Now, co-signing. Now, sometimes you have these situations in your family. Somebody says, look, I'm having some difficulty. Can you help me out? Things are going to get better. And Proverbs 11:15 says, to guarantee loans for a stranger brings trouble, but there's safety in refusing to do so. Because once you co-sign a debt, that debt also becomes your debt, and it shows up on your credit report. And so I always discourage people from this co-signing any loan. Brother, sister, nephew, whomever, just don't co-sign unless you are sure that you're going to be able to make the payment without any difficulty. Your financial well-being, just in case they don't. I've run into some bad situations where people were saying, well, it was my brother, I had to do this for him, it was my sister. And they walked away from the debt and it damaged their credit. So stay with Proverbs 11:15, when we talk about co-signing. Now, credit scoring, I mentioned credit scoring before. Let's look at it here. Credit score is used for how likely individuals repay a new loan based on his or her credit report. The higher your credit score, the lower the interest rate is going to be on the loan. And most lenders use what's called the FICO score. It ranges from 300 to 850. Okay. Now, what happens? Here you go. This is a process. Your payment history, outstanding indebtedness, and then they process that. Thus, they create your credit score. Credit score, and it impacts your ability to get a credit card, get a loan, car loan, employment. Some cases, some states they won't. If you deal with a certain sum of money, they may say, look, you can't, we can't accept that, because of where you are. And some don't use that at all, but they do use your credit report. Purchase a home, rent an apartment, and utilities. I made a change in one of my utilities, and and they ran a credit report on me. Just make a change in the plan I have, so they check that out too. But these are the factors here. I want you to share this also, what we're talking about with your family, friends, and relatives, particularly your credit score here, because a lot of people don't know how to manage their credit score. And that impacts their resiliency a lot because people make decisions based on the credit score. Your credit score, 35% of your payment history is based, 35% of your credit score is based on your payment history. So you want to pay consistently as agreed. Now, I always tell people with credit cards, pay more than the minimum to liquidate it as soon as possible. If you can't pay more than the minimum, pay the minimum, okay? Because it's a formula at work here, okay? 30% of your credit score is based on your outstanding indebtedness. How much debt do you have compared to the limit, So that's keep around 30%. And 15% of your credit score is your credit history. They want to see how long you manage credit well over a period of time. And 10% of your credit score is based on the credit inquiries. You're shopping at Macy's, and they always want to offer you a credit card. You get a 10% discount if you open a credit card. Look, every time you open a credit card or someone inquires about a loan for you, your credit score goes down by 2 points. So if you went to Macy's, you did the same thing with Nordstrom's, you opened a new credit card there, you lost 4 points off your credit score. So don't just casually open credit cards. I've said it's got Visa, MasterCard, where you can use them anywhere and let it and call it a day. 10% of your credit score is based on a mix of credit, how much installment credit you have, how much revolving credit you have. You want to see if you can manage both. But pay very close attention to those two factors there, your payment history and your outstanding indebtedness, because they represent more than 2/3 of your credit score, okay? Make sure you do that. Now, what's a good credit score? This range here, 780, 850, excellent. Good credit, 660, 780. Fair, 601 and 660, okay? And then you have bad credit, 500, okay? So you see what happens in terms of interest rate and how it goes up based on your credit score. It's higher and higher, give you an idea, okay? And you can fix it yourself. You can fix the credit score by paying your bills on time, keep your debt low down, okay? Reduce your debt consistently on time, and keep that. We got 30% limit I talked about. Only apply for credit when you need it. Okay? How to maintain and improve your credit? Always pay on time. You have your credit card balances every month if you can, but definitely pay the minimum payment. Only apply for credit when you need it. Pay more than the minimum. Contact your lenders if you have some difficulty and work out a payment plan that you can afford. And negotiate a payment plan too. If you always current, you see other solicitations where you can get a better deal, negotiate with them to get the rate down, okay? Who use credit scores? Mortgage lenders, all those finance companies, banks, potential employers, car insurance companies, landlords, and anyone wants to understand how you manage credit, okay? Now, with your debt liquidation, you look at this. You can just start off with the minimum payment on each of them. Then as you pay off one, you add to that sum, use that same money. In this case here, you had a minimum payment of $16. You had $25, you paid $41, you paid that off. And then you went to the next outstanding debt of $1,700. You use the $41 you used initially. It goes to $109, you pay that off. And then you move up to the next one, you're paying $100, you add $109, that's $209, you pay that off, you use the $209 toward the $5,000, that's $409 a month. And then you pay it off, and then you take the $409 and add to the payment you're making on the $10,000 loan and pay $809. So you're chopping it down, you're getting rid of your debt load. Back to what I said before, I have a high debt load. We want to chop it down to increase our financial resiliency, okay? And plus psychologically, you're getting rid of your debt too. It helps you out too. You don't have all that debt hanging over your head. Now, as at the credit cards, I said Visa, MasterCard, from credit union, bank, and just use that, as a basis. And see, this is the same thing as the annualcreditreport.com. You can call that number, the 877-332-8228. Okay. Unable to make timely payments, just contact them, work on the payments, arrangement, seek forbearance. under COVID-19, a lot of lenders are offering forbearance, during this period of time for your mortgage payments. You have a rent moratoriums going on now during the pandemic. So you want to reach out to your landlord or your mortgage companies and see what's available to you so you don't get into a really bad situation that's difficult to recover later on. Now, always have an investment plan. Always have an investment plan because you want to accumulate over time. Because in this country, you're going to gain wealth primarily through two means: home ownership and through the acquisition of financial assets. As a matter of fact, over like 10% of the value of the stock market, 10% of the wealthiest people, as a matter of fact, own 80% of the value, 80% of the value of the stock market. So you need where the wealth is coming from. So always have an investment plan. Like I said, here, back to the Bible again. If you look at Matthew 25, 14, 30, the Lord wants us to maximize what we have. All of you know about the talents, where we received 5 talents, he came back and he had doubled, he had more. And the guy with 2, he came back with 2 more. But the guy who went and buried his money, because I consider tantamount to spending his money, the Lord took it back. He was just one worker. He was happy. Everybody, so you want to maximize what you earn. Managing money well, saving and investing, because I always say it's in the Lord's will that you make investments. It's right there in the Bible, and as you get more, if you manage your financial resources well, you have more that you can use for yourself in terms of creating wealth, and you also can help other people too. So why do you invest in saving? To achieve your goals. You have goals. You want to buy a house, you want to start a business, you want to help your children or grandchildren go to college. That's what you save and invest for. And plus, it gives you a sense of security. Be prepared for financial emergencies, dislocations that could occur in unemployment. And the pandemic again, we just never know. They said we're going to have another one sometime, in the future, but we don't know, but we're going to be prepared for it. And it helps you maintain your self-esteem. When you have savings, you have investments, it gives you some confidence and self-esteem. And plus, you can have control of your financial future where you're not being controlled by anyone. You're not being controlled by anyone, but you have your own financial resources. Thus, you are financially resilient. Okay. Now, in terms of investing, think about this chart here. The lower your risk, the lower the potential reward. Like you just invest in CDs, savings accounts, or just bonds. The return is not going to be as great. You will have to take some risk, move up the risk scale some. It could be a growth and income mutual fund that has some growth stocks in it and some bonds in it, or a balanced mutual fund that has 6% bonds in it and 40% stocks. Then you have individual stocks. People do well with that too. People bought Apple years ago. They got a lot of money. Netflix, when they came out, people bought their stock, went higher and higher. So you can look at individual stocks too. But the risk is higher, but the potential reward is higher too. Or you can just do it, just deal with the mutual funds. Equity mutual fund just has stocks in it, a bond fund, but have some investments in place. Okay. And you notice here, just starting early. Start and say $50. Just start low. If you can do this $50, what can happen there over a period of time? And this person had $50 a month, and you see what happened there, how it grew over a period of time. It can happen. Even at 3.5% interest rate, how it grew. But this have some investments over time. It can happen if you do that. Okay. So starting early, I always tell the students, you got time on your side. You can start off with a lower sum and still become a millionaire. But you wait later, it's more. It means you have to put in more. So you start 25 years old, so you finish Morgan State, 22, 25, 247 a month consistently, and assume you have a 9% return, and the stock market generates like a 9%. And some balanced mutual funds, very conservative, would generate that too. You can be a millionaire. You'll be in good shape at age 65. But here again, don't get afraid. Don't become afraid when you see the stock market going down because these economic cycles are occurring. Just stay steady and go forward and get all you can. Okay. Now, while we're talking about this, you always want to think about when you're talking about financial resiliency, you always want to think about the cash flow leaks that you may have. So I always say limit the amount of money you carry in your pocket or purse. Because I know I have that problem too. If I have the more money I have in my pocket, the more I spend. I say I want to buy something, but so I minimize the amount of money I have in my pocket. Leave your credit cards at home if you can't manage them well. Pay off your credit card balances each month. Pay as you pay off your debts. Have new payment amounts remaining. And compare shop. I always say shop on the backside of the season. You don't shop right into the teeth of the season. Now, always be able to say no to friends, family, relatives. People always coming to you. You can have this. I have a little problem here. At some point, you got to say no. Otherwise, everybody in the family is going to be broke. You have to do that. So let's close it out because we're getting close to our time period here. So the basic steps to financial resiliency, and we had this always for the students too, consumers and student loan management too, is to follow the budget, where you know exactly how you're going to use the money you have available. And you want to control your reoccurring expenses like food, utilities, transportation, control those things, okay? Limit your spending. We're going to change that number. When I saw that fork in the road, we're going to change that. We're going to move over to have savings and investing, so we're financially resilient, and set some specific goals for yourself in terms of what you want to accomplish in life, and keep organized records. And always when you're developing these goals, know what your values are as a family. What do you want to have occur in your life, okay? Keep organized records, establish and maintain your credit, plan your shopping, don't overpay taxes, participate in your company's 401k plan or 403b plan, have an emergency fund, make sure you're adequately insured, because at the end of the day, you want to have this in the back of your mind, the life you want to avoid. You never want to be homeless. You always want to have food. You always want to have discretion in your life where you're not limited to what somebody else tells you to do. So I always think about this. Always think of this. What guided me when I was even young. I said, I don't want to have to depend on my daddy, or mother, or anything. I want to avoid that. So this visualization is part of cultivating an appropriate sense of urgency about retirement, but just in life in general. But I say that it's more about just dreaming about the boat that you want. In order to be effective, I think people need to think about not only the life they want, but the one they want to avoid, okay? Because we know that we have more educated African Americans than ever before, and we know they got 2.6 are living in poverty, and we know our wealth gap is low. So we want to change all of that because we've changed in terms of acquiring more education and financial resources. So we want to change to enhance our financial resiliency. These are websites. We have a newsletter at slppd.org that you can. It has a lot of information there. And we have hands-on banking. That Wells Fargo has is a very good source here. But you can contact us at any time. Okay. Well, thank you. I want to open up for questions now. I was trying to get as much in as I could during the period of time we have. I think I'm pretty close to schedule, a little bit off. But Dr. Holland, let's open up for questions. And Tracy, do you have anything you want to add on to what I've talked about?
No, again, I just want to thank you for the opportunity of being a part of it as far as with Morgan State University and the Insightful Foundation. And your presentation was definitely empowering. And some of those statistics that you shared, that $1 trillion as African Americans as being consumers, and we want to spend more money on how we look and what we drive instead of investing more in our financial future. That was an eye-opening moment, but it's a journey. you know,
Yes.
and I'm glad to have been a part of the process of being able to share and listen and be empowered as well. So thank you so much, Mr. Daniels.
That's good. Okay, that's good.
Yes, I'd like to thank you too. Ms. Daniels, can you stop sharing your screen and then we can,
Yes,
yeah, thank you.
that's what I'm trying to get down. Okay, that's better.
Great.
I'm trying to get to,
See everyone.
I can see
Yeah,
everyone.
that information was outstanding. And I think just sobering, comparing whites with blacks, and, you know, that we still are not educated as to the level that we need to be in regarding our finances. So I think that it's just so powerful to think what are some just small changes that we can make, you know, to
Exactly.
make a difference in our future. And then I think too that we're mentors. So people are watching us, we're role models. As we make
Exactly.
these good decisions, then our children and grandchildren, all those young people who we impact will see it, and hopefully they will also imitate, you know, our lifestyle in those positive ways.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, that's right. I like that what you said, because it'd be mentors for others and be a good example to others, you know. You know,
Right.
like my oldest grandson, you know, he hears about me talking about stocks, and Papa, I want to have a stock account. And so he bought his first shares before he left to go to college this year. Yes. And he's telling his friends, say, oh, my Papa, he'll show you how to set the account. You know? So they have
I think Mr. House has a question. Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mr. Daniels, for this most informative session. I should have
Thank you.
had this when I was a freshman at Morgan.
Okay.
I would be better prepared. But
I hear that a lot.
yeah, but you know, I'm concerned about student debt. We hear a lot about student debt. And I had a student loan when I was in college, which I thought was exorbitant, but as it turns out, you know, it was nothing. But, you know, on the front end, I see so many students coming out with extreme debt. And I'm wondering what kind of counseling they're getting on the front end, the students and their parents, because oftentimes financial institutions aren't really, you know, concerned about the borrower. They're concerned about money.
Exactly.
So many times I'm just curious, are students getting the best advice on the front end about managing student debt, how much debt they should get? Are they being given access to all of the other opportunities for financing that are available to them? Yeah, I guess you get the gist of my question.
I got it. Oh, yeah, sir. Yeah.
On the front end of this, are the institutions themselves financially prepared well enough to help students and parents on the front end of this so they can avoid horrible circumstances in the years to come?
Exactly. Yes. Oh, yes. Well, we have opportunities to participate in freshman orientation sessions, and we cover student loan management during that period of time, and also you know, how to deal with even the refund checks they receive. Now, some schools do invite their parents in on the sessions. And the parents really enjoy, like some of the things we talked about today in terms of open up credit card accounts. Parents didn't know that. And some could not even apply for a Parent Plus loan because they had damaged their credit, you know.
Right.
So in some schools, but it's not consistent with HBCUs, where they are having financial literacy sessions that include student loan management. And in financial aid, they have what is called an interest counseling session with the students, you know, going over the promissory note, and, you know, but some of the students see that as being just perfunctory. And then when they graduate, they have an exit counseling session with them, just paying the student loan debt. But I agree, we need to have a broader conversation on student loan debt, and also the alternatives, you know, like, you know, work study, the scholarships, maybe have some sections on writing application scholarships, because a lot of money goes by students every year because they want to apply for the scholarships, you know. And so just be intentional about those things so as to reduce the student loan debt. Yes, some of the schools are much more aggressive in this space. As a matter of fact, we track some of those where they have us at the school every August when they bring the freshmen in to see if the retention rate increase. And the schools where we go every year to provide training on student loan management and credit management and budgeting, they have a higher retention rate.
Right.
Some schools, so well, we can't work it in the schedule this year, all that. So, so we just got to drill down into it. As a matter of fact, the U.S. Department of Education is looking at that same thing you're talking about too. How can we get students prepared, to handle the debt that they are acquiring, because we've got about $5 trillion in student loan debt out there, and they're at risk too,
And I know that's important too, being an old federal bureaucrat working in the Department of Education. Default rates among HBCUs were horrible.
It's 30% right now, 30%.
And I'm wondering, has that improved? Because, that was also a burden on the institutions as well. I worked in the Atlanta regional office where most of the HBCUs were located. And unfortunately, much of our assistance was directed to them because they didn't have the financial systems in place for, proper management and so on. So are there any special efforts being made to ensure, because there's a lot of money out right now with HBCUs, to make sure that they have the financial systems and management systems in place to, better manage that?
Yes, the Office of Financial Aid has been working with them diligently. I was at the Finance Initiative HBCUs before the pandemic, and they go on site to try to make sure they have the infrastructure in place. Sometimes they're put in place, and then 6 months later, they come back.
It's gone, right?
Yeah, but yeah, they're trying. They're trying to get everybody to do what they have to do, and other thing, you have to think about the long term of this, because you find some individuals who acquired student loan years ago, now they're in their 60s and they're still paying on the student loans.
Still paying, right.
Resources, and now the next step is if they're on Social Security, they're taking a portion of their Social Security benefits now and applying against the outstanding student loans. A very critical period, So we got to look at it differently, and we got to take it on, and so people will understand, of course, education is important. It got to be important, but we got to also look at the liquidation of the debt to acquire that education. Look at that and try to deal with it as quickly as we can.
And also, Mr. Daniels, if I could just add,
forgiveness of student loan debt.
Yes, that's a program too. You have the student loan forgiveness program. If you go and work for a public agency, you can work for the agency in the federal government or a local agency. You can go there and you work there for, I think they require you to work 3 years, and they'll pay them like $10,000 a year toward liquidating your student loans. And after 3 years, you can go ahead and work for someone else, but they want to, they will forgive it. Or you become disabled, or you work in public safety, become a policeman, fireman. You can't get your student loan debt forgiven that way too. Yes, Tracy?
Mr. Daniels, thank you.
oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, thank you so much. We're out of time.
Oh, okay.
I think we could go on forever on this topic, and I think we'll have to have you back.
I'm delighted to.
To continue this conversation, because it is so important,
Yes.
and if you're not well financially, it impacts so many other areas of your life.
Exactly, it does. It does.
Yeah.
So I put Mr. Daniels' information in the chat box. So if any of you want to make contact with him, his email is there, his phone numbers, his website. So feel free to take that down. And again, we just thank you for being here with us. Thank you, Ms. Roan, and for all the others who attended. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, but thank you very much, Dr. Holland, for inviting me, and all those who attended. And special thanks to you, Tracy, at the last minute joining us. We'll continue our conversation.
Okay. All right. Have a good weekend, everyone. Take
You
care.
too.
You too.
You take care of
Happy
yourselves.
Easter,
Thank you.
happy
Happy
Resurrection
Easter.
Day, y'all.
Yeah.
Be
Bye.
blessed.
Bye.
Take
Bye.
care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.